I always felt like I had to show up for these kids. Like, I got to be there because what if nobody else is there? You know, so I always felt that pull. And there were times that I was pretty discouraged and wanted to give that up and just kind of throw in the towel.
Hey y'all, I'm Kimberly Warner, mama of two, lover of shoes, and serial entrepreneur. I've dedicated my life to helping women succeed in business by just being themselves. But the path isn't always easy. I was targeted for having an authentic opinion on something that happened to my town, to my businesses. I was attacked for publicly speaking my beliefs, and then I was reduced to a cliche. Aggressively blonde, too dumb to know what I'm talking about. This is why your husband left you. After these attacks, I spent 9 days in bed, debilitated by fear, until I pulled myself up by my big girl pants and chose to lean into my fear and not be silenced by it. This podcast is for everyone who has experienced fear or regret. You will learn how others like me have risen from the ashes and are better for it. Here we go. Hey y'all, we're back for part 2 of The Prodigal Daughter, featuring my friend Sarah Flynn, who has basically been very vulnerable and giving us a recount of not only her life in the younger years, but how she proceeded through a lot of hurt and pain and disappointment throughout her childhood, and some other pretty major stuff. If you haven't heard part 1, you want to rewind, definitely. But we're going to pick up where we left off. So thanks for coming back, Sarah.
Thanks for having me.
So you, where we left off, basically in part 1, you are on the kitchen floor. It's kind of a cliffhanger. And you were asking for help, basically surrendering entirely to him so that things can change.
Well, that moment on the floor was a huge moment for me. I did completely surrender, and I felt the peace drop down, after that, and just hug me almost. I didn't know what was going to happen. I just knew that I said what I had to say, help me. And he was like, okay, I got this, and kind of just wrapped me up, in his arms and comforted me. And I immediately had some kind of a peace that I didn't before that moment. I cried it out. But going forward, I just, went back to work and doing the thing. I still gotta do the thing. And so this next week I'm at work and someone walks in the door, a gentleman, to fix the floor behind the bar. And I noticed him right away. He's cute, big blue eyes, red
That wasn't what you first noticed, though. You first noticed his butt.
Well, I mean, he didn't
Let's get real.
He didn't crawl in the door.
No, he didn't crawl in the door, but...
So he was tall, and I like that, and so that was one of the
then
first
once
things.
he got down on the floor.
Nice. Yeah. And so eventually, that day I was watching him work, and we were talking while he's working, too. So it wasn't all me, looking at his rear the whole time.
No, I just like that part of the story. It's my favorite part.
It's not so bad, is it?
And so, and I've seen it actually. So I can contest that it's a pretty nice backside.
So, yeah, he was working and I was working and we were talking, and he ended up being there working on the job, fixing the floor that whole week. And I kind of put in a word asking if, he was single or whatever.
Yeah, because you kind of just felt a connection, right?
Yeah, I totally did. He was just cute and nice. And
his name is?
His name is Neil, Neal.
Okay.
Some will say he's Neil the real deal.
Well, I don't know if we need that much. Do you ever think it ironic that you were literally on the floor in your kitchen, asking God, I can't be alone anymore. I need help. and then he sent you a floor guy.
Yeah.
I mean, how ironic is that?
Right.
I love that. And you told
And
me
his name is Neil.
Yeah.
It's like,
Neil,
okay,
yeah.
having everything to do with
Neil and the whole
kneeling and the
situation.
praying
So
and the
you're
floor.
like, you're already married before.
In like Flynn.
Yeah, and that's your last name. Oh, this podcast is getting very rowdy right now.
Oh my gosh.
But so at the end of the day, you kind of felt, you almost knew instantaneously, didn't you?
I did know. It's weird.
And so tell us about like how he transformed the next few months, weeks, years of your life and kind of where that went.
So Neil and I gave my number once I knew he was single. I gave a friend, I'm like, hey, give him my number, and he ended up calling me. We went on a first date here in Kenosha. Well, he's from down in Illinois in Glenview. And so he would drive up like on the weekend to see me. And so we had our first date, and because I didn't have a car, I had lost everything. So we were dating long distance till 2013. Neil lost his mom that year, the day before his birthday. So that was a really hard season for us.
And hard season as a couple because you're not married yet, correct?
Right. Well, we met in 2010, so 3 years. We'd been dating long distance.
So would you say, though, like up until that time, he had seen everything of you, the good, the bad, the really bad, like he had seen all of the moons of Sarah and really knew you as a person and loved you all around for everything that you were. Like, you've showed him the ugly and the ugly cry, if you will, and he's still around. Because I think a lot of women sometimes, are afraid to be truly authentic in a relationship and really tell truths. And you had a lot of truths that you'd mentioned in the last episode that probably were really hard to talk about. At this point, does Neil know all of the ins and outs of what you'd been through as a child?
He's found out more and more along the way, after that point. But I told him right away my story.
So he knew pretty much everything. Yeah. And now this was his time to be vulnerable. He lost his mom, and now it was kind of a measure of your relationship because now you're the one that is going to have to be, the powerhouse
strong
or
for him.
The strength. Yeah, the way he was for you in the beginning, right? Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
And so you obviously get through that because you're married now, right?
Yes.
Now, spoiler alert, you're married.
We got married in 2016.
Okay.
6/11/16 to be exact. We got married on his birthday.
Oh, good.
At the beach house. It was literally the hottest day of the year. If y'all look it up, you can go see. It's not a joke.
Really?
And the beach house doesn't have air conditioning. So it was a trip, girl.
Well, that would be
everybody was putting their feet in the lake. But everybody had fun. So, it is what it is. It was meant to be that way, the hottest day of the year. And that's how I like to remember it.
And it was the happiest day of your life, but of your year.
Yeah. And I thought, this is gonna be it. This is gonna make me so happy.
And did it?
And it did.
Mm-hmm.
However, I still had inner work and inner trauma that was undealt with, unaddressed.
How did you go about kind of healing those pieces? Because I think sometimes people have those broken, parts about them or the holes or whatever, and they think another person is going to fill the holes or heal them. And it does take work, and sometimes it takes therapy, and sometimes it takes reading books and all these things. What did you do to kind of actually do the hard work to heal yourself? Because another person can never heal you and make you whole. They can help you, obviously, and they can be there for you and be a great support system. But
you can be a team, right?
Yeah, but you really have to heal yourself. So what sort of steps did you take after that to really start putting your insides back together?
After, my moment of surrender, I wanted to find people that, like a community of people, and the first thing you think of is church.
Your tribe.
Right?
You wanted to find your tribe.
Exactly. And
which is a theme of mine in many podcasts, is that you have to find your tribe.
Exactly. And so I was on a quest for my tribe, and I had tried a couple of churches and I just didn't belong. I felt like I always had like the outsider, the outcast, the not good enough girl. And so I couldn't stick with that
Right.
feeling, it just wasn't working for me. So actually my dad invited me to a church one day. He had not went to church for a long, long time, but he found this church that he liked and he threw it out there to me and was like, "Hey, do you want to go to church with me this Sunday or whatever?" And
And it's totally out of the blue.
yep. And I said, "Okay, yeah." I opened my heart, obviously, and I showed up, met him there, and they have different auditoriums. And so there was a loud auditorium where you can listen to the really loud music and the drums and the band and everything. And then
That'd be
there's
me. I'd want to be in the loud room.
well, my dad liked the acoustic, and so that's where we were, in the more quiet room.
Okay.
And I don't know if you're familiar with Ben Mulwana. He's a musician here in Kenosha.
Oh, I've heard his
Ben,
name. Yeah.
He's got records out now, and I mean, he's just the most beautiful person, inward, outward, and then put him on a guitar, and it's like, oh my gosh, So he's playing the acoustic guitar, and it's worship music, and
Are you just like drawn in? Like that's
I
the
was,
moment.
yeah, and I
you're
love
like,
acoustic,
this
and
is it?
I felt the connection with the place, through the worship, being there, being in front of this person who's just, you can feel God in his song,
That's awesome. Yeah.
and I sometimes would just go to church to hear him sing.
Can you see me? You can save me. Only you. Pull me up. Pull me up.
That's awesome.
I
like
wouldn't
going
even
to
want to
a-
go to
a
church.
concert.
I would just,
A Ben
I would
Mulwana
just go
concert.
want to worship,
That's
and I've
awesome.
told him how he affected my life in such a good way,
And your transformation.
At that point, in more recently, I let him know, because it meant a lot for me to be showing back up there, and
Right.
I.
So the church and obviously this musician are very an integral part of your transformation.
Well, because that kept me showing up to
Right.
hear these talks.
Right.
And they're
that's-
talks that anybody can use, right? And you can show up to this place and you can come as you are. They just require you to wear clothes. That's it. And I love I love
Well,
Dave
I don't know if I
Nelson.
can go then.
Shout out to Dave and Rindy, the pastor and his wife. I don't know where I'd be without GLC, Great Lakes Church.
So, do you feel that this church and the preachings and the people, this community, is what ultimately then healed your inner soul to completion? Or were there some other things that you did along with that?
So I started going to church, and then I started volunteering with the kids team.
That's where I wanted you to go. Okay, cool.
And that was in 2011. So I started attending in 2010, and then 2011 started volunteering with the kids, middle school, high school, and I still volunteer now with the 4th and 5th graders. I kind of float around wherever they need me.
Because that is one of the things that I think really does help to heal a broken soul, is to do things for other people.
Definitely.
And see that, in the moment, even though it's not going to heal the past, it shows you what the future can be like in the faces, especially in kids, like the faces of other kids, these little children.
Yeah.
And also it shows you that you are strong enough. I mean, if you're strong enough to give something to someone else, then you are innately stronger than you were the day before. Because there are days and my staff knows, like I call it my hole, where I feel like I can't do anything. I can't get up. I can't go to work. And they just pick up the slack and whatever. And I literally am so depressed. I can't do anything. And I think like if I could just get up and do one thing for someone else, not me, but someone else that needs it more than me, then probably I would be able to get out of my hole and quit, and it's not that I'm feeling sorry for myself. I mean, I have some clinical depression and I have, some hormonal issues and all those
Mhm.
sorts of things play
Mhm.
into it. But sometimes doing something for someone else fills you up so much, fills your cup so much that you
Definitely.
can just take the next step forward. And sometimes it's just one, like you were saying in your first episode, baby steps, like one step at a time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so I was volunteering, and if you know the story of our church at all, we moved around a lot. We didn't have a permanent building, and so as we moved, people would come and go, and I always felt like I had to show up for these kids. Like I got to be there, because what if nobody else is there?
Right.
So I always felt that pull,
Right.
and there were times that I was pretty discouraged and wanted to give that up and just kind of throw in the towel. But I knew that wasn't an option, because I needed to be the person that I needed when I was a kid.
Right.
I needed to show up.
So were you wanting to give up because it was like a particularly hard day for you, or just because it brought up so many memories and so many thoughts of your childhood?
I hit some tough seasons,
Right.
in my life, and I mean, all different feelings arise, like, oh, who am I to go to church and like volunteer with these kids when I'm depressed and can't get out of bed. And so a lot of feelings of unworthiness, and how is God going to use me? Like, maybe they're just better off. Just a lot of um,
Self-deprecation.
yeah,
Yeah.
unhealthy self-talk.
Yeah,
And
I'm familiar with that.
yeah, it's been a friend of mine, and I'm kicking that one to the curb.
Yeah.
It's gonna get out of here one way or the other.
Well,
But
so you've been working hard, and I feel like, see, now I'm crying too. To bring it home and to kind of uplift it and get into like the fun and good and happy stuff that you're doing right now, you have to just keep in mind that it's always a work in progress, right? And
yeah,
you're never going to be no one's ever going to be fully healed or fully perfect from the scars or the wounds of childhood. Even if you had the most perfect childhood, which technically I did. I mean, like literally, I had like what would be the quintessential perfect childhood. And yet I suffer from a lot of, anxiety and clinical depression and all these things. So, sometimes it's just the way God made you, your brain chemistry and what have you. At the end of the day, it's always going to be about the journey. And so
and
now,
trauma also comes in all different forms. And
true.
so, I mean, it's recognizing that trauma, and I think it's important to say that was another moment of volunteering. I volunteer for Royal Family Kids. It's a national organization for foster children. And you do a week-long camp, and you treat them like royalty, and you give them healthy adult relationships to count on. And
Yeah,
they
we were
say you
talking
might.
about that because Eddie and I want to do that with you
Oh
this
my
summer.
gosh, yes. So
Remember?
right now they're taking the application.
Oh,
So if there's
Eddie.
anybody else out there, I can put a link in my bio, Bass Vision, Wisconsin, but
We'll
you can
attach
do
a
it too.
link. Every time I make this writing thing in the air to Eddie, that's for him to take a note. He's like, am I casting a spell? I'm like, just meaning like write that down. We can
But
put the link into the notes.
yeah, that would be
The show
amazing.
notes.
They need volunteers. So and they would
Awesome.
appreciate that from the bottom of their hearts. But it was actually when I decided to volunteer for that, and I wasn't going to be a counselor. Actually, I volunteered to be a photographer
Mm-hmm.
and take pictures, because that's, something I love to do, be behind the camera,
Right.
capture moments and memories. And turns out that they were short for counselors, and I was presented with the opportunity to be a counselor. And I want to say that changed my life, because there's certain book work and psychology that you have to learn about, and you have to, there's a
Mm-hmm.
process that they put you through before you ever
Accepting you.
volunteer.
Right. Correct.
And
Yes.
I actually, in that process, laying in my bed,
Wow.
doing the book work
Right.
and the computer, answering the questions and reading, and I actually figured myself out as a 37-year-old adult.
Right.
I figured out that I'm not an alien. I'm not broken beyond repair or messed up, or I'm actually just a kid that bad things happen to,
Right.
and I couldn't process it.
Right.
And I feel like there's so many people out there that may not be aware of that.
Right.
And if for no other reason, I would just like urge people to volunteer, and maybe not for royal family if that's not your thing, but go where your heart is leading you and go help someone that may need it, and see what happens and see how God opens doors of
Right.
love.
Because sometimes when you're like a stranger to yourself.
Exactly. And so after that point, I was able to I was able to like accept myself. And we hear it all the time: self-love, self-acceptance, self-care,
Yeah, change the tape. All the things you say in your head, change
But
your tape.
literally, that's what it takes. That's the first little seed.
So it's that time again. Time to give a gift. It's your friend's birthday. It's your coworker's retirement. It is your mother and father's anniversary. And in the times that we are living currently of COVID, what can you do to give the perfect gift that isn't a gift card? You can come to Authentic Gifts, downtown Kenosha, or go to AuthenticGifts.com online. You will find the biggest selection of unique gifts, things for men, things for babies and kids, things for girlfriends, things for mothers, things for grandmothers, things for grandpas, dads, the whole nine, and we gift wrap it to boot. Boxes, bows, tags. 90% of the vendors that I carry are women, small business owners, and the other 10%, some of the bigger like decor companies and things like that, because we want to offer something for everyone, but we have something at every price point. If you don't see it on our website and you're curious about some of the one-of-a-kind things we have, you can call us at 262-612-3032, and we can text you pictures of live product that we have in the store that you can have the chance to give as the most amazing gift ever. AuthenticGifts.com, 625 57th Street, Kenosha, Wisconsin.
That's what it takes. That's the first little seed, is accepting and loving.
But the circle that brought you all the way around is much longer than just you went out and volunteered. I mean, before you knew where to volunteer, you had to get your relationship back with your dad so that he could invite you to that church, so that you had already been open to God again, like you had come back to God. I mean, all of the pieces that we've already talked about have brought you to that moment.
Yes.
So let's switch gears a little bit, because you're doing some fun things right now. And of course, I always want to ask you some of my favorite and fun questions. But one of my favorite questions that I already know the answer to, but is, after everything that you've been through, do you have a personal mantra or something that you live by? And the only reason I know this is because when I first met you, I was going through a very hard season or chapter, and you shared it with me because we both have wrist tattoos, but yours is very compelling, and it is a piece of what makes you who you are, and it's one of the reasons I love you. But tell us about and I would imagine that that's kind of the personal mantra that you live by now, right?
Yep. In this season, in the last couple of seasons, this most definitely
so tell
keeps
everyone
me
what
going.
It is.
So when I first started my journey, into myself and my inner work and my self-love and trying to help myself, I was reading and diving into these books, and I came across the book called Love Warrior by Glennon Doyle, and she tells her story. But the bottom line is, this quote is from that book, and it's: be messy, complicated, and afraid, and show up anyway. I mean, it grabbed me because I was all those. I was very messy. It's all very complicated, and I'm very, very afraid. And guess what? We can still show up, and we can still show up for ourselves, because that's necessary in order to show up for other people.
And sometimes harder to show up for yourself.
Oh, for me, I'm an obliger, and it's like, I'll do it for you. If you're counting on me, I'm counting on you to count on me, is basically, I think, from one of the other books I've read. I won't do it for me, but I'll do it for you, type deal.
Yeah. Wow. And that's something that is, I think, sort of typical of kids of abuse or kids that have like kind of gone through traumatic childhoods, is that they want to be a people pleaser because they were always wanting that acceptance and acknowledgement,
Yes.
through many years of their life. And so without getting it now, they want to be a people pleaser and obliger. I'll show up for you before I'll show up for me.
Yeah.
Because it almost makes you feel better to do something for someone else than it does for you, because you know that then they're loving you back and you're just trying to fill these holes of love. So that
and I'm
makes
an
sense.
empath, so I feel all of
Same.
it. I'm like,
Same.
I want you to feel good. I want you to feel good.
Yeah.
I want us
I
all to
consider
feel
myself
good,
a
right?
vessel.
Yeah.
So I say I'm an empty
could say
vessel.
that, yeah.
And whenever I'm around different energies, whether they're positive or negative, and I think I talked about this in a blog that I wrote, that I do absorb that energy, which is why I was so drawn to you when I first met you. Literally, and I had seen you, because you were working at a couple of different restaurants in our area, and you had popped around, and at one point you might have been working at 2 or whatever, and then you left one and went to another. And so, and we often go out to lunch or have little powwows or whatever. And so I would kind of see you throughout town, and I just always was drawn to you as a person, and I didn't really know why. And I mean, now I get it. Like, now it's all come full circle, and it's like part of my vessel, part of my, energy absorption was absorbing you and what you had to offer and what you had to bring to my life, because I was just getting to know you right when the riots in our town were happening. And you were such a great support system, even though we didn't talk every day and we didn't talk on the phone. It could just be like a quick text or whatever. Your energy just always filled me with positivity. So your mantra of show up anyway, right?
Yes.
Is what you have tattooed.
That's what I have tattooed, just the last part of it. But I made sure to put a semicolon because my story's not over.
I love that.
So,
I love that.
Yeah.
Show up anyway, semicolon. So now let me ask a couple fun questions, because we always like to know, and I don't know if you thought about it at all, but if you were Oprah and you could give a whole room of people something, what is one of your favorite things in your life that you use every day that you love, that if you could recommend or give to every single person in a huge audience, and you had $1 gazillion, doesn't matter what it is. It could be a car, it could be whatever.
Gosh.
What would it be?
Gosh, I'm trying to think.
Well, maybe I'll let you think a little bit. You can think a little bit. I do want to talk a little bit about your business, because aside from your full-time job and then your part-time job working by me at Authentique, and your 2 kids and your husband, you also have your own little side hustle / entrepreneurial situation, and it is called what?
Fast Vision Workshops. So that's also part of my journey between 2017 and 2018. It just was a really dark season for me. I thought getting married and all that was the answer to all my inner hopes and dreams, and turns out that isn't. My husband was traveling a lot, and I was in my head a lot, spinning lots of stories around. I was overeating, overdrinking, overthinking all these things. And that's kind of where I started doing all the reading and the self-help and all that, like we talked about before. Well,
So are you thinking that when he's out of town and you're saying overthinking, are you thinking he's out cheating on you, or
no,
you were just
I was
lonely?
just it was bringing back that alone feeling again. And so I was really struggling with that. My best friend is like, hey, find something to do that makes you happy. You got to get through this. There's a season in every part of life, and including marriage. So I started working on me. I had read Rachel Hollis' book, Girl Wash Your Face, which relit my soul on fire. It gave me permission to start again. I felt unstoppable now after reading this book, and I was ready to start again every single day. Start today, because this is her mantra. It's she has the Start Today brand. I mean, it's a whole thing.
Right. So why vision boards?
Well, I was following her on Instagram and Facebook and that as a mentor, and they were doing a morning show every morning, and I was just so obsessed with all this, taking it all in, following her. And it came to the first of the year, and she started talking about vision boards. And I'm like, what the hell is a vision board?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I never freaking knew what one was.
Okay,
That's
so
the crazy thing.
let me just tell you. So in the world of direct sales, where I come from,
It's a
It's a big thing.
It's a huge thing.
Yeah. And so we would do a lot of like big day-long retreats, teaching not only our leaders, but, our team all the way down to brand new, like newbies. And a lot of times just creating that whole excitement and vision for what owning your own business can look like starts with something as silly as a vision board. And I remember the very first time we had to do one with the company that I still work for. And as a leader, I was like the highest level leader there is in the company. And at that time, I was the fourth person to get there. So, I was kind of like a big deal. And I was like, a vision board? We're going to make a vision board? Forget about it. And they had like all these magazines and scissors. I'm like, this is so lame. Like, I am not doing this. But then I was like, okay, well, everybody else is getting all excited. So I guess I better pull myself up by my bootstrings and do it. So then as I'm doing, and two of my other friends are with me, and we're both like, this is so lame. Like, oh my God, we're like totally rolling our eyes. Like, we're way cooler than everyone else. And in the end, the three of us actually ended up having fun and actually cutting out real things to put on the vision board. And the funny thing is, whether it's like pictures or it's just a list, a lot of people do this, especially around this time of the year. It's New Year's, you do a New Year's resolution, or at least you write down your goals for the new year. And a lot of times people say, if you write it down, it will happen. And so you were following her, that author, and that's what made you want to do a vision board. You had never heard of it.
I had never heard of a vision board. So I Google vision boards and
this is cracking me up.
I'm like, look at what it is, and it immediately takes me back to my childhood. Because I would do this. I wouldn't have necessarily call it a vision board, I called it a collage. Like
cut and paste things you wanted or liked.
And I would actually love making these, and I would like give them to people as gifts.
With actual pictures, like of friends and stuff?
I did pictures.
I did that too.
It lit me up, right? It was something that brought me back to a good childhood feeling. As soon as I saw what a vision board was, I was like, oh,
yeah.
That's cool. I used to do that, didn't really think anything of it.
So you connected in a positive way.
Correct. And then that year, 2019, it was about to be 2019. We were welcoming 2019 and it was December. And that was the December that Neil got laid off 4 days before Christmas. It was a super stressful time, and he ended up in the hospital with pericarditis, which is inflammation of the lining of the heart. So basically, I believe his heart was broken because this company that he worked for just let him go, and he was going to be vested. Like, it was just a big
out of the blue
betrayal for him. And so, luckily, he got a job the same day. Like, he went to the union shop in Milwaukee the same day, and a miracle happened, and he came home with a job, which I had prayed earlier that day, God, he needs a job like right now. And I said it like that to God, right? As I'm backing out of work, because he had a review, and I thought he was getting a raise. We're thinking all the opposite. And he called me, and I was backing out of the driveway, and I stopped, put the car in park, because I was like, oh my gosh, it's him. He's already done. Wanting to see and I'm like, hey babe, how'd it go? And he goes, they fired me. And I was like, what? You're effing kidding me, right?
That's insane.
No, I'm going to Milwaukee. I'm going to the union shop. I gotta go. I love you. And I go, babe, I'm so sorry that happened. I'm going to be praying. I don't know what else to say. You know what I mean? And I let him go. I had to go to work, and that was that. I hung up the phone. I go, God, he needs a job today. We can't move forward without him.
You can't make it.
It was a cry of desperation and knowing that he could provide it.
Right.
And he literally, like, who gets a job the same day they're fired? Neil got a job that day. They hired him. He was working on Monday.
Right.
And they had to give him a couple days because he had just gotten out of the hospital.
Right.
But he did go back. He went to work for them that week.
So then did this promote your vision board business, or how did this transform us into what comes
So
next?
he got out of the hospital, and it was like the 29th of December. So New Year's is a couple days away, and I'm like, okay, well, and he quit smoking. They said that was necessary too. So I'm super proud of him, and he's still not smoking to this day. So yay, Neil.
Woo-hoo.
Love you, babe. I'm proud of you.
Awesome.
So I'm like, well, you know what I'm gonna do? Let's do a sober New Year and make vision boards and you guys are going to do it with me, talking to my kids and,
Cute. Yeah. Right.
And so we did, I can't say that they thoroughly enjoyed it, but, I took them down that road and we did it. And so they still have their vision boards hanging in their rooms. We do the Sober New Year's and things are looking up for me. And I'm actually thinking at this point, I'm going to be a photographer. I'm going to follow my passion and I'm going to get a good camera and I'm going to do the thing, right? And so this was all on my first vision board. And I actually ended up manifesting my camera and was thinking, I got my camera now. I'm going to start taking some courses and all this. And one day I got something popped up in my email or whatever, and it was talking about vision boards, telling me that, there's actually a course you can take to
learn how to teach
to
them?
effectively teach people how to vision board.
So now you're like getting all the signs.
Yeah. I'm like, how do they know? Now I know it's Google. I mean, they do it with everything.
When you talk, the phone listens.
Exactly.
But at the time, you thought it was God. It is. You are supposed to do vision boards as a living.
So I just thought, oh, wow. My first inkling was like, oh my gosh, you can actually do this and make money, And my mentor and who I took the course, ended up taking the course through, Christine Kane, started out as a musician and she's just doing great things, just wrote a book, The Soul Sourced Entrepreneur, that I just got on Audible. So she put this course out and I saw the sign, right? But then what do we do a lot of times when we see the sign, we want to ignore it or run away from it, right? Like doubt. I mean, it was like I was doubting and wavering and not signing up, right? And then all of a sudden there was some extra money that came to me that was unexpected. Okay. And I was able to invest in myself and actually follow the sign and what my heart was telling me to do. And I signed up for the course.
Okay.
I had 6 people at my first workshop.
Awesome.
And it was such a beautiful day and such a confirmation.
And you made money.
That I did make money.
Good.
But it was such a confirmation that that's what I was where I was supposed to be. Like just how full I feel after every single one I do. But that was the first one, so I didn't know that it was going to happen every time. Right. But it does.
Yeah, it fills you up. Right.
Even when I'm just with one person and it's a one-on-one.
Right.
It's crazy.
So,
and I love it.
You've started it. It's successful. Obviously, COVID's come in, and so you've had to do some adjustments and doing online ones, and you'll get back to doing in-person again very soon, I'm sure.
Yes.
So your business name, how would people find you if they wanted to book a vision session with you? Where would they go?
So you can find me on Instagram at Vast Vision Wisconsin. Vast Vision WI, not the whole word. I'm on Facebook, Vast Vision Workshops. Okay. There's a link to my new website that I made.
Yay, good job. Well, let's end on a very fun and hopefully interesting note. If you were Oprah and you could give this favorite thing of yours to every person in a huge audience or all your friends, no matter the cost, what would your favorite thing be?
It would have to be the doTERRA On Guard whitening toothpaste.
Really?
Oh my gosh, I freaking love it
really?
So much. I keep it stocked like 3 deep in my...
I mean, I love doTERRA. I just am not a big fan of the On Guard taste in my mouth. Like I put it on my feet, like if I'm feeling sick or and then, I diffuse it, if the household's like sick or whatever. And I love it for its antimicrobial properties and you can clean the counters and all that stuff. But I am not a huge fan of the taste. Although I do don't they have dental floss too?
That must be new because I don't remember that.
I could be wrong.
But
I could be wrong.
You could be right, and I just don't know
I'm not
about
sure.
it.
Well, this has been quite the 2-part episode. In fact, it's the first 2-part episode here on Fearlessly Authentique. That is how interesting you are, my friend, Sarah Flynn. We just want to thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing so much. There's been laughs and tears and raw honesty, and that is what makes an awesome podcast. So thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
And hopefully you can come back again and tell us about the success of your vision board business. After we get through COVID, you're going to be a millionaire.
Yeah, because I'm doing tweaks and changes that are fun and exciting, and I just can't wait for people to experience the workshop for themselves. So.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to seeing it in 2021.
Thank you for listening to Fearlessly Authentic. My mom hopes this episode empowered you to be fearless. Please remember to subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Share, rate, and comment because my mom wants to hear all of your feedback. Contact her directly at fearless@fearlesslyauthentic.com. Hosted and executive produced by my mom, Kimberly Warner, produced and mixed by Steve Hawkins, and co-hosted by Eddie Polanzani. Connect with us on social media via fearlesslyauthentic.com. Copyright Fearlessly Authentic 2020.